What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Shoenn with Jude, episode 5. Mind the gap. Mind the gap. Think about it. Think about it. It's a little bit of a stretch, but you can figure it out. Maybe. Maybe. I don't want to give any hints. Anyway, we are talking to Dr. Maria Katsamani, a licensed psychologist here in New Jersey and New York State, also a professor at Rutgers University. In addition to that, Maria owns and operates Mythos Farm out in Pennington, Ringo's area, western part of New Jersey. She's a trainer. In part one, she's discussing the evolution of her sort of schooling, not only academics, but with horses, working and traveling throughout the world. Um, Historian talks about a lot of the evolution of where we came to some of these movements, some of the equipment that's involved. But really, I felt it important to have Maria be on the program, so to speak, because she talks about, you know, the horse and the human and the connection and some of the crossover things that exist in human behavior, equine behavior. She gets into defining the vagus nerve function, which also exists in horses, how horses process stress, similar to humans, this disassociation, learned helplessness. So, fascinating interview, really interesting interview, I find. And again, I've said this multiple times, whether it be um, in intros or just out and about talking to people about the content that I'm trying to bring, is I'm constantly fascinated. I'm constantly interested in learning about other people, learning about trying to just tap into a little bit of their knowledge and experience. So I hope that these videos continue to do that. Please subscribe to get notifications. Again, doing my best to get you novel, interesting, equine related content and other content in the supplemental videos related to like horsepower. So just an overall sort of intertwined theme. So appreciate you being here. Hope you enjoy the video, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for stopping by.
So my name is Dr. Maria Katsamanis. I'm a horse trainer based here in New Jersey. I'm also a licensed clinical psychologist, licensed in both New Jersey and New York.
Okay. How did you talk about like the evolution of so psychology into horse training? Like how did that come about? Were you always attracted to horses? Did you always ride? Like what's the connection there?
Sure. So horses have been in my life since I was a kid. I was a professional rider by the time I was 19. I have two masters and a doctorate. Obviously, I have a lot of education under my belt. But through that time, I rode. I was a working student. I had jobs in the industry. I was aligning myself with certain trainers to build that expertise as an apprentice. I knew very early on that I wanted to be a trainer. I just didn't know um, what portion of it. I was watching different people. My mentors were telling me um, you could do this full pro. And then I had my family who was concerned as a female. I'm from Greece, concerned that as a female, I could get hurt or the longevity of that career. So I had made them a promise early on that I would get educated. I would get a degree, and if I wanted to do anything else, that at least I had a degree. So that was kind of the compromise in it. And I had luckily very good mentors in the industry, really top people, and they guided me in that direction. They would often say, "Look, you're choosing a profession." My bachelor's is actually in international relations. I got a scholarship at the American University in Washington, D.C. I spent a year abroad. I raced in France. I was an apprentice with a racing barn, an exercise rider. So in my whole span of education, in there was always some kind of work around horses, with the intention of doing it somehow either semi-pro or professionally. For a brief time, I was campaigning for Greece for the dressage team, and then I got out of competition altogether for various reasons, and then a kind of created a niche practice in horses. And nowadays, I kind of go in and out of both worlds. And you'd think that psychology has nothing to do with horses, but because we are mammals, we share that common bond. A lot of the things, you'd be surprised how many things, for example, I just throw some things that we have in common with them in terms of training and psychology. We share a vagus nerve function, our breath rates, how that influences our neurological system, are all things that I was able to, even the research I was working on in the human world, I could transfer to the horse world. In fact, like the first book I wrote, The Alchemy of Lightness, Jude, was 2014. All the things I was talking about then was research I was working on at Robert Wood Johnson Medical School. I'm a faculty member there now still, but I was an active researcher for 12 years there. Again, having horse training on the side and kind of in and out of that. And a lot of the things we were talking about 12, 15 years ago, people in the horse world were laughing at me. They thought, oh, but now it's on, everybody's talking about it.
Give me an example of that.
So the fact that the way the horses, the idea that horses in training, when they look, for example, placid, and then they explode on you, the vagus nerve function, people, I would talk about it and they'd say, there she goes again. She's just complicating horses. And now we know that vagus nerve function is something we should be aware of in horses. For example, that play dead syndrome, very commonly found with humans. If you see in rape victims or severe PTSD, you have situations where people will kind of like dissociate. Horses do the same. So a lot of the parallels psychologically, they may not have metacognition, but we do share some of these common vestigial survival ways of coping with stress, extreme stress. The way their emotional range is far greater than we realized.
Touch on that again. You're talking about the vagus nerve. You're talking about how there's similarities with humans and horses and sort of reactivity.
Right.
Just how does that work again for the horses, similar to humans, like these different flight or flight responses?
Sure. So the one of the things we understand now, we have something called the vagus nerve. It's the 10th cranial nerve, and it's kind of the heart mind connection. It affects the way we process stress, our autonomic nervous system, very similar to a horse. So now we know, for example, that even though a horse looks like he's calm, he might actually be dissociated, something that happens with humans in extreme situations. So it guides us as trainers better to be able to look out for the nuances of whether the horse is really with us. The idea of learned helplessness, a concept that had been around since the 50s in the psychology world with David Seligman, who did the experiments. And I encourage people, like I throw these words out and I tell people, Google them, go on ChatGPT, write down what I'm just type out what I'm saying and learn about these concepts to elevate your horsemanship, because is science is out there around it. It's that it doesn't quite trickle into the amateur world or the sport horse world as quickly, because we've been talking about these things for 15 years. But again, a little bit I was at the forefront there, because then people you start to talk about these subtleties and they say, oh, she's just complicating horses. It's not that. It's just that now we understand more about them. So it makes our job with them a lot easier. Because I understand where a behavior is coming from, I then am much more guided about how I'm going to approach the problem, instead of being aggressive, getting emotional, blaming the horse. It's made me a lot more proactive and investigative, and then overall curious about them, their experiences. But it's coming not from a Pollyannish or naive place. It's it's coming from a very grounded and very logical place.
Mm.
And that way we can get to be friends faster, and we can continue to keep our love for them, because it's an animal that's thousand pounds, essentially, that it can put us in danger. So I'm always calibrating that. I'm always finding ways to risk assessment. And part of that is understanding them deeply.
Mm.
So why wouldn't these knowledge things be helpful? They are. They help guide us and help us understand. Me as a trainer especially, because I work less, I work smarter. What's the statement that they say?
Work smarter, not harder.
I work smarter,
Mm.
not harder. That's why at 50, physically, I can do what I did at 20 and 30 with a horse. Other people are kind of breaking down at this point,
Mm.
because I'm just working smarter. I also I encourage people to do the same, like read, continue to read, align yourself with people that are logical, that are learning, that don't know everything. I don't know everything. I'm continuing to understand, and my techniques evolve from that place. So
So give me your training philosophy. I recognize, like, I don't want to oversimplify something that's probably involved, but if you were to say you could give a synopsis of your training philosophy, what would that be?
so I have a catchphrase it's in my book. It's sometimes on social media. I'll flash it every so often, but it's simple. But when you start to dig it in, it's a lot more complicated than that. But it goes like this: decide today not to push and pull, and watch everything change.
Mm.
Decide today not to push and pull, and watch everything change. And it goes with horses or for people. And it, in some ways, it's a you need, I believe in life you need a philosophy. It starts with a philosophy. Once you have a philosophy, that's why, you have kids, just teach them some kind of religion. They have a basis, they have a philosophy. From there they can decide, and they can evolve into their own. So I provide a foundation philosophy, and it starts with that simple mantra: decide today not to push and pull, and watch everything change. Because what happens is, with the horse, there's a propensity, when things don't go our way, to do what? To push on them, put our legs, spurs. Spurs, by the way, were never meant to elicit forward in a horse. Did you know that, Jude?
No.
No. The spur, if you will read old manuals, I'm a history buff, so I love particularly cavalry history, and I have a whole library in my home, uh, from the French to the Germans, School of Hanover, to the Portuguese, to the Spanish, and elite riders, Spanish riding school, elite riders would use the spur by the third rib. When they would turn the leg in and touch it, it would help relax the horse and actually get the horse to go on the bit. So it was used for lateral movements. It was a refinement.
Mm-hmm.
The refinement was a small one. As we got more brutish with the horses, by the way, we still, in our unconscious mind, no matter who I talk to, we have this underbelly concept of the horse as livestock.
Mm.
So that's what fuels also, like pulling them and pushing them. But if you commit to deciding not to push and pull, you find so many more creative ways to deal with them. Your mind starts to go in different ways to connect with them in a way that doesn't involve pushing and pulling.
Mm-hmm.
So all of a sudden, okay, if you cannot use your leg to just drill them, what else is there?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what else there's. You can sit back and say, why isn't he moving forward? A horse is a forward moving animal. So why is he not moving forward? Then you can get curious, and you say, maybe he has some soft lameness, maybe he's got some soft tissue issues, maybe he didn't sleep right, maybe it gets you down the track to figure out what's going on, because essentially he's violating his nature. So by by not pushing and pulling, you get into a space where you get creative, and you start to wonder about the animal, find other ways to do it. I'm a French classicist by trade. The people I've aligned with have been all military, mostly French, a couple of German people that were School of Hanover, military people.
Mm-hmm.
So old school people, Mikolka, people like that, Zero. And these refinements are what elevates your horsemanship. So that's why it became a niche practice for me, because I saw that over time, less and less people were interested in that.
Why? Why are less and less people interested in that?
Oh, Jude, that's a psychologist. Gosh, I could give you. That's my next book, by the way. But I can tell you this, that um, as a professional rider, I was used to, my whole career has been sitting on really Andalusians, PREs, Lusitanos, warm bloods, dressage,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And at some point in my career, I was getting all the difficult stallions that people were importing and having all the sport rehab issues, because there seemed to be a gap between the rider and then the vet. So you have the analysis that the vet provides, and then the riding that the rider provides, but nobody to kind of rehab, or like the equivalent of a physical therapist in the industry. So more and more of those horses were coming to me. And I learned a lot in that. I just take whatever God gives me. I'm like, oh, okay, that's what you want me to work with. And it was a good match for my philosophy and also the classics, because we really don't focus on pushing and pulling the animal in that way. My mantra is a revised version of La Guérinière or Boucher. It's just an extension of it, a modern extension of it. So it's not mine altogether. I cannot claim that.
Mm.
This is a modern twist of it. But why do people? I see it more and more even now. People, it's like the old adage. You see, go to Italy, go to Greece, and when people get out of work, mostly like your male will get out of work, and what will he'll do? He'll go to his local cafe, have a coffee, and sit with his buddies there and talk politics or talk sports to diffuse, so that when he goes home, he's more of a blank slate. We come to our partners, we come to our relationships, and we expect the other person to diffuse that for us. We don't take responsibility for that. So then we come to the horse seeking the same thing. The horse then becomes the sublimated child, the dog. With you're mad at your boss, but you kick the dog kind of situation. So people come to the horse to calm down, to escape. In some ways, to recalibrate from the day. And that sometimes involves emotions of anger. They're coming with a lot of anger, so they want to get on and go. Well, I have a car for that. I have my M2. She's parked, Jolene, she's parked in my garage. And she's wonderful for that, because when I feel those feelings, I feel depressed, or I feel angry, I go and I take a nice drive. I don't take it to my horse. But people are not used to that. They're not used to self-regulating, what they call in psychology. Self-regulating, like feeling an emotion and saying, you know what, I don't want to go home and engage with my spouse with this. I'm going to take a drive, listen to some music, reflect on this a little bit, maybe call a friend who's more neutral, and not take this home or not take this to my horse. So doing something like classical dressage means you have to be present. And let's say you're with your horse for 15, 20, an hour, you're committing to that presence, because what you're seeking is oneness. You're seeking to be one. Most people deep down are scared of oneness. They're scared to get that connected to something. There's communication involved. We're just not prepared for it. Our society doesn't prioritize it. But I tell people it's okay if you don't feel the need for it. Just know it exists. It exists with them. And that is available to you at all times. But it requires some work to get out of your own way to be able to experience it. Most people just, they have emotions. There's competitiveness. More and more our society gets very competitive. The horse is just another means to compete. And whenever there's ego in the equation, nothing good comes of it. Nothing good comes of it. So I made a commitment years ago that there's a couple of things that happened with me with horses that I saw. I opened my eyes and my heart, and I realized I don't want to be that person in the industry. And yes, I'm not going to make the money I could have as a professional rider or competitor. And yes, if I just acquiesce to what clients want and letting them just get on and go, even though I see the horses in pain, I don't want to be that person in the industry. But I had to let go of my own ego, and I constantly work on it. I'm constantly checking my own ego and making sure that I'm not bringing that here. That I ask myself the three questions. I wrote a book, and in them, I have those three questions. It's, what can I do for you? How can I make you comfortable? And are you happy? Even when I'm working a horse on a lunge or I'm sitting on them, I'm asking that. I want to make sure it's okay for them. I want to make sure I'm not missing anything. I want to make sure that I'm developing and I'm working on this, Jude, all the time. It's not like I've arrived. I'm working on constantly being able to hear them, to feel, to honor the sense. I have like, this horse is not well today. I don't know why,
Mm-hmm.
but I sense it. Now I have to figure out what's going on for them. Sometimes I can see things happening way before they become then where the vet's involved.
Mm-hmm.
It's brewing. I could see, I sense it. But I'm constantly working on my timing and feel. Hence why I love my car.
Yeah. Is part of your practice, let's say, as a trainer, also managing clients insofar as you talk about, when you arrive here, you should be in a certain mind frame. Is that something that you do or you find yourself doing with your clients, or you try to avoid going down that road?
Yeah, I do manage it. I have to manage it. I'm known in the industry for managing it. Uh, People sign a waiver, and it all boils down to transparency and honesty.
Mm-hmm.
All I can do is be myself. I've been able to forego a much more lucrative career in horses because I needed to be able to speak from the heart, so people trust, and they know me long enough in the industry that I'm not gonna blow sunshine up their ass. I think that's the
Mm-hmm.
part of my French. And I'm not going to lie or deceive them for money purposes. They know that. Uh, at the flip side of that is that then they have to deal sometimes with directives that I give that are not in alignment with what they want.
Mm.
And it's like,
Give
what
me an example.
um, perfect example. The horses are in today, it's a rainy day.
Right.
Let's say they stay in all night. I'm going to bring them out this afternoon for a few hours, but let's say they stay in all night. Tomorrow, in theory, I may have scheduled a lesson 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning. I'll call that owner and say, we need to reschedule. We
Mm-hmm.
need to move this later in the day because I want to make sure that they're outside for a couple of hours.
Okay.
Okay. So that's not going to resonate for some people.
Right.
But when am I going to see my horse?
Right.
I only have this morning. I'm sorry that happened, but it's very important for me that your horse be able to be outside. If I don't put my foot down
Mm.
and advocate for them, or you'd be surprised. You'd think the owner wants that, but I have found, sadly, in my career that that's not the case all the time. Far and few. I'm lucky that the people that are in my vortex here are in alignment with that, and they, of course, they pay me for that. They
Mm-hmm.
want me. They may not see that's a concern for the horse, and they appreciate that I would bring that up, but that's not the case oftentimes in the industry. So people, they pay me for that. So for the most part, the clients I have, if I bump against somebody who's not, like I tell people, please read my book. Please know what you're getting involved with. I want that you read as much as you can about who I am, what I represent, how I work. I give people references, and I tell my references, please be honest with them. Tell them that um, I would do something like reschedule a lesson because the horse is not in.
Mm.
Or if I see the horses, for example, this guy here, when my horse passed away, this year's a very traumatic year, he wouldn't eat his food. He wasn't eating for 2 days. It's a massive shift for him. It didn't affect maybe the others in that way, but it did him. So I'm not going to have that animal go on a cross country trip lesson with the owner if I see that he's maybe requiring something different. He may be requiring the owner to sit with him for a bit. Maybe do a light lunge, a long lining session, and take frequent breaks and just make sure that somebody's sitting with him when he's eating. You know, that's more important to me than getting the job done.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get there. That's the thing with people, like competitors that get concerned. They work with me like, well, I have my prelims and I have to. I said, look, you're gonna get to the same place. It's just gonna be a little slower. If you want to go fast, get a BMW and a great dealership and a great Porsche dealership. I could get you someplace fast, but speed should not be part of the equation when it comes to horses. I work as if I have all the time in the world. That's
Mm-hmm.
another thing that pisses clients off sometimes, or if I'm at a clinic. I if you're lined up to take a lesson with me at 10 and I'm not done with the previous one, it's 10:30. Most people that know me by now recognize that I'll give that same courtesy to them, but that I'm not looking at my clock.
Right.
Vice versa, if we got the job done, the horse understands the point, and I get off right away and I walk away after 15 minutes. Um, you're not paying for that hour. You're paying for my wisdom. You're paying for my experience. You're paying for my timing and feel. That's what you're paying for. I'm very clear about that up front so that there's no misunderstanding. And still, there's misunderstandings.
Yeah. You talked about sort of you created this niche about different horses would come to you for these different issues. Talking about behaviorally, if these horses come with certain behavioral issues, do you feel that most horses can be rehabilitated with time?
Jude, very good question. In all my travels, and I've been from one side of the planet to the, I've seen third world countries. I've been invited to some of the most incredible stud farms you can imagine around the world. I can tell you this: I have seen about two cases that I could not solve, and
Mm.
both of them involved oxygen deprivation, some kind of a birth issue, and I suspect. I mean, the vet wasn't there. One of them, it was a third world country, but the description of what happened, everything, the horse was very much acting as if he had some kind of a oxygen deprivation. And just like us, they have different intelligence levels. That's part of my job, is to figure out where they fall on the bell-shaped curve,
Mm-hmm.
intelligence levels. They have different what they call suggestibility levels. Like you can actually hypnotize them, and I do.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting to observe it. And they have like the bell-shaped curves. Some of them who are not very reactive, and then some that are kind of somnambulistic, highly suggestible. They would be great recruits for the military, for the like born supremacy movies, kind of mind control, highly intelligent. But I've only had two cases where I said this is too dangerous. This
Mm.
honestly, this horse should be put down. It's not going
Mm-hmm.
to serve anybody. But most other things, if I couldn't solve it myself right at the moment, I was able to get a team together, you included, a farrier, great vets, a great team, to put the pieces together to figure out what's going on. And
Mm-hmm.
it's rare that I've not been able to crack a nut. People send horses from all over the place to figure something that they can't figure out, and we figure it out. But two of them, I know there was nothing I could do.
So like if I could label it a behavioral assessment, how long would that take for you? Let's just say hypothetically, I have a horse, I'm having certain issues with it, I come to you. Is that something that you could determine in one or two sessions, or is that something that's going to take a little bit more time? Like our horses, they give a tell like off the bat in your experience, or
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. So typically, when I have a clinic, for example, I'm traveling next week to Greece, in northern Greece. I I'm I don't know what I'm gonna find. I've asked my hosts not to tell me. I like to go blank, so I like the challenge. I within 2 days, I'll know if the horse is. It's like the branch of a tree. Like yes, no, and if it's yes, then kind of like this
Right,
is how
right,
my mind works.
right.
I'll know in 2 days if this horse is okay or not. Typically, it could be any, like we had a horse that came in, they had all these vets, exams, trainers on it, problems. It took me 2 days to figure out how to patella fixation and an intermittent patella fixation, and we were able to get into a program then he was on his way.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but generally, to figure it out takes an average of about 2, 3 days. Rehabbing it could take up to 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
The shortest I've had has been a month if it's an emotional piece. But if it's a physicality, to get them kind of on track, is usually around 3 months. I
Mm-hmm.
tell people 3 to 6 months to cut that. Then you have a program, a physical program that you can get the horse. If it's like a mystery thing, like we don't know what it is, what happened there.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because usually what happens, Jude, it's by the time the horse comes to me, they've been they've been trying to tell humans for a while, they've been ignored. So there's now emotional problems, like the horse is running you over, they're bolting in hand. I've seen cases where I imported a horse that was perfectly fine, beautiful, lovely. horse was ridden wrong, trained wrong, compression. I see the horse 3 to 5 years later. They call me in at this point, and you can't even lead the horse around an arena because it's taking care of number one. It has
Mm.
lost confidence and trust in people in such a way that's checking out. So now you have not only a physical issue, now you have to regain the trust of this animal. So it's usually by the time they come to me, it's a shit show, pardon the French.
Yeah, yeah,
it's,
yeah,
it's, it's a combo of everything.
yeah,
That's why it takes like 3 to 6 months,
yeah, yeah.
realistically.